Hello. Hey, everybody.
Hello, good morning.
Hey, good morning.
Everyone had a good weekend.
Yeah, pretty good. I was over actually in Merrimack, and Fidelity had a big room planning session. So bit jet lagged getting back on the Friday morning, but good session though. Busy week.
That's great.
Lots of talk about open source at the session in our future.
That's great to hear. Open in present as well.
Yeah.
Okay, let me share the notes. Okay, shall we get started with the meeting? Okay, sounds like a yes.
I've only got 10 minutes today, sorry, because I've got to go to another meeting.
Okay, then let's get started. So welcome everyone to CDEvents working group. June 19th today. Feel free to sign yourself in if you'd like to. I share the link in the chat. I got a few things on the agenda, not many, but since you only have 10 minutes, Brad, is there anything in particular that you wanted to discuss first before we go on?
Yeah, just an update on the GitHub action for CDEvents.
Yes.
And possibly just throwing an idea out for you for something in the spec that I believe could be in scope. I'd be interested on your thoughts, which I can share as well.
Yes, absolutely. Would you like to share your screen, Brad, or?
Yes, I can.
Yes, so let me stop sharing first and then.
Yeah, so I guess like, so update on the GitHub action, we've made a mock endpoint. So we're now ready to, to start testing it. We've done the code and now we're just ready to start testing different examples and get it ready for like sort of first version. And then the next meeting we can present that back. And then for CDEvents, I was going to wonder about the, so if I get the spec up on my other computer. So we're wondering at work if we can, so we have in Jira, we track our features, right? So this is sort of mapping the life cycle from idletion right to delivery, so right to the end. So essentially what we're wondering is there any scope for something like issue created or feature created or some sort of link that will, we have pipeline run builds, repository, environment change is almost close, but what are your thoughts on adding something one step back that will go like when this feature has come from an idea into development, if that makes sense? Does that sound like it's in scope for CDEvents to start with?
I would say this. So features, I would probably call them issues.
Issues is a better word, yeah.
I think so. And actually, issues could be both features, but they could also be trouble reports, for example, connected to some incident.
Yes.
You will get the feedback loop there to see when the incident has been is into the CI or CD pipeline before it's actually resolved.
Yeah, because then I could go, this issue or this document, then that could then progress, into the rest where, we make a repository, we do the pipeline, the environment created, all those things, and then we could track right from the start right to delivery. And then if I tell that to my boss, I would be able to adopt CDEvents as well, because we do very well in Jira with that, but having that CDEvents for every single event that occurs, we can send that through as well.
Yeah, and I guess when you push a change to your source control system, you also often annotate that with some kind of Jira tag or something in many cases, I believe.
Yeah.
So would then be possible to somehow tie the source change to the issue?
Yeah, because I mean, we use branch and we use that Jira ticket for branch and PR titles, in like the semantic version than the ticket. But yeah, I guess I was also playing around with a lot of open telemetry as well. And it's almost like a trace ID that would sort of do the propagation right through the life cycle of that feature or that issue. It could be as easy as just putting the first ID onto the Jira ticket and having a custom field there would be fine as well. But I can think about it more if you think that could be in scope, and then maybe start a thread in Slack and we could talk about it a bit more. Maybe I can do what Ollie did and just sort of make a really loose draft proposal.
Yeah, so I think I agree with Emil. I think that this is in scope, and I wanted to point out a couple of things that have been going on that are also relevant to this. So the first one is we started a collaboration with the Value Stream Management Interoperability Group from the Oasis organization, and they're they're interested in having an interoperable way to define so the events in the value stream management area. So companies like Atlassian, for instance, are part of that group. So their scope is wider than what CDEvents is today. And we are not necessarily going to say that we are going to expand the CDEvents to do whatever they're going to do, but there certainly is a good amount of overlap. And we already discussed in the past, I think we mentioned issues in the area of incidents. So I think certain area of the scope could be included in CDEvents for sure. So, and that's something I think that is relevant for you specifically for this use case, because you were mentioning Jira and issue tracking system. So that's if we can, if like that group would adopt CDEvents as a standard, then it would mean that CDEvents could be implemented in products like Atlassian products and similar products to generate those events. The other work, which I think is relevant, because you mentioned like connecting the events or tracing through the events, is that we've been discussing about how to connect different events with each other. And that's a work that we've been discussing for some time, and Ben from Apple is preparing a proposal that hopefully we'll be able to review soon. And that we want to include at least in the first iteration in the next release. So I can point you to you probably find some links in the meeting notes, but I also can point you to the issues.
Okay.
And maybe it's something that you may want to review also when the proposal from Ben is out there, to make sure that the kind of use case that you have in mind is taken into account there as well for connecting different events for each other. Right.
Okay, cool. I will wait for the proposal then, and I'm sure it will have some good stuff on it. Yeah.
But by all means, I think if you want to start, I mean, like describing the use case that you have in mind, the idea and an issue, and start the discussion and it in parallel, I wouldn't wait on other proposals for doing that. I think it's absolutely valuable to do that, because it's more than just connecting events. And I think, yeah, it's also something that we can bring up then when we have Steve from the VSMI joining the group, so we can say, okay, well, we have discussion started, so they can engage in the discussion and see what is their point of view there. So from the share. All right.
Yeah, so that was my updates. I had an overlapping meeting, so I had to run out of that one just to quickly give you an update. But next time we'll be ready to present the GitHub Action work so far. And then we can get alignment and then keep going for the next phase of it.
Great.
Thanks a lot, Brett.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great week and talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Cheers.
You. Wait. Let me just fill in the notes. Okay, I'm trying to take some notes. I think Emil, maybe you may want to complement what I wrote there in your comments. I don't think it's quite complete. But yeah. All right. Anything else or any other comments on these two topics from Brad? All right, so then going back to from the agenda, in terms of action items, the only thing I had noted down was for plan to arrange a meeting with the Spinnaker team for demo of the work Jalander has done. I don't know, I don't see Anne or Jalander in that meeting, so I don't think we have any update on this. Yeah, but I can bring it up next time. I wanted to bring up a quick update on the harbor proposal. So last week I presented the idea of introducing CDEvents into Harbor. Harbor is a CNCF project, which is an artifact repository. It's a graduated project in the CNCF. So I presented this proposal, which is not fully complete yet, but it's about, well, I presented the proposal and then I think it was received quite well, and they asked me to make a formal proposal, which is this PR that I created now. And yeah, so one of the things in this proposal is how existing events from Harbor map to CDEvents. So the Harbor has a number of different events that are available, and I think only push artifact as we have on CDEvent side. So I created an issue on our side to discuss what other events, if any, would make sense to include in CDEvents. And not for Harbor only, but in general. So they have things like pull artifact, delete artifact, events about scanning. Those we might be able to use like testing events for those, or we might want artifact specific ones. I believe a lot of artifact repositories include scanning capabilities, so this probably makes sense for interoperability point of view. I'm less sure about things like quotas, replication, tag retentions. If this is something we should include in CDEvents or not. But yeah, I didn't want necessarily to start the discussion here, just wanted to provide this update. But yeah, if anyone has thoughts and would like to share on this, yeah, please let me know. I included here a link to the issue that I opened.
I guess it's always easy to dream about any kind of event that can be sent from any system. I think we need to be somehow make conscious decisions when adding a lot of new events for what use cases they would be interesting for, and if they are really CD related, so to say. I'm not saying that we have a well-defined boundary over CDEvents or how deep into details the CDEvents should go. So yeah, I guess this just enlightens the fact that we probably need to have such guidance written somewhere, what our intended depth is when it comes to like events happening within certain tools in the system. I guess one obvious idea is that CDEvents should be sent when there is some kind of use case saying that we can trigger an action in a CI/CD context based on that event. But we also know that it's for observability, not just for triggering, of course. So whatever is relevant to observe from a total CI/CD system, so to say, could be in scope, I guess, for CDEvents. I'm not sure if like a quota thing is such an event, but maybe.
Yes, indeed, that was kind of my similar line of thought. I'm not sure quota is relevant for, I mean, it's relevant for, maybe relevant for triggering some kind of administrative or notification workflow, but not the CI/CD workflow specifically. In terms of observation, it might provide additional information though about why a certain CI/CD workflow stopped or failed. But yeah, then again, I'm not sure, and we need to draw a line somewhere. But maybe something that I wanted to mention, I forgot on this proposal, sorry, Harbor proposal. In terms of implementation, I think what I proposed is there we start doing an initial implementation on Harbor side. That's with CDEvent 0.3, and that means only the push artifact event is there. And then once we have more events, respect changes required, possibly in 0.4, then we can iterate and do like a larger or full implementation there for producing events.
Yeah. Have you been in any more contact with JFrog people? We had a meeting there with them a couple of weeks ago. I think I said that we should somehow demo or at least describe how we in Ericsson send events from Artifactory at the moment. I haven't succeeded in finding anyone who can really present that yet, but I guess we have similar requirements there, similar needs of events from Artifactory as from Harbor.
Yes, indeed. So I have not spoken directly from with the as product owner on JFrog side. We spoke with during the meeting. I think there was only an update from Laurie that she had some more internal meetings and things seems to be promising, proceeding well. So I think so that's kind of the only update. We discussed about this in the last meeting with Ben, and I think Ben reiterated also Apple's interest in having CDEvents supported by Artifactory, and offer to join the conversation as well. Yeah, I think even Tadezi was invited to the initial meeting. Neil, to I don't know if you're aware of this. I think Jer was invited to the meeting, so we had a meeting with JFrog product owner to discuss and present the value that Artifactory could get from implementing CDEvents, and because both Fidelity and Apple expressed interest, and I believe, like Emil was saying, Ericsson as well uses Artifactory, and they have support for Eiffel there, so it would make sense for a lot of users to have CDEvent support in Artifactory. The context.
I think it would be powerful to have a symbol suggestion for Artifactory as we have now for hardware, then to show on the interoperability perspective of CDEvents as well, that we can have two different artifact repositories sending the same events, and the consumer could see those events regardless of who sends them.
Yeah, so I think that's yeah, so that's definitely the value that we want to show. And
I guess also the different types of events to send could be discussed with JFrog as well. I guess I'm not sure if we could have I guess we can have a meeting together with both JFrog and hardware people, discussing what are the valuable events to send, what occasions.
yes, I don't know that we have a commitment yet from JFrog that they would like to do the implementation, but maybe they would be open to discuss such things for sure. Yeah. Okay. Let me take a minute. What I can do, I mean, I can, to start, I can also share this work that we're doing with hardware with Laurie, so that she's aware about it as well.
Yeah, I think it's good.
And maybe she can relay this information back, that this conversation is relevant for them. So, and that they're very welcome to join the conversation upstream, I would say, and so we can discuss what events make most sense to have in the standard.
So just a question, how do JFrog currently capture their events?
Maybe you know more about it, Emil, about what JFrog does in terms of events today?
No, not what they do by themselves. I don't know if they do anything such. I mean, we have a plugin developed by Ericsson to send Eiffel events, but that's nothing that is supported by JFrog natively itself.
So that's a very good question. Maybe we can try to answer. Is that correct representation of your answer? No. So what is that? What kind of?
Exactly. What kind of events do they support today, and what's important to them? I suppose. And I don't know if that's something maybe not. That's more a question for, or more an interest for me, just trying to understand this space more so maybe for them. But and just maybe Emil, just to give you just a brief overview of my background. So in Fidelity, we're obviously incorporating CDEvents, and we're looking to extend the specification as well as part of an evidence store we're creating. And on the back of the evidence store, we're looking at analytics and everything else, but it makes sense for us to contribute to CDEvents because it had, I guess, a foundation of what we were looking to do. But this space for me is definitely still new. So I'm still trying to understand the kind of events and notifications that other companies currently capture, and the crossover between what we currently have in the spec for CDEvents. Because it seems, obviously, and I have the benefit of not knowing enough about this to ask these kind of questions, but it seems like a no-brainer that you would want to use, just for interoperability, you would want to use this spec unless you had some bespoke requirements that precluded you from using this. So that's why I'm kind of wondering about these questions. Yeah.
Yeah, so in the discussion with JFrog, we had I think product manager, the product owners from two components of Artifactory. One is one was registry, and the other one there is a pipeline component as well. So I think the events from the CDEvent specification that we have today that would be relevant probably for them are the the artifact published event that we have that is designed specifically for registries. And possibly I imagine things like the pipeline events or the core events or the build events. I'm not entirely sure what kind of abstractions they have in the pipeline component, to be honest. But yeah, so those are the two main areas that I see. But yeah, so I think it would be very interesting for Artifactory people to then join the conversation upstream, so we can discuss what kind of events they have today, if any, and what it would make sense to include in the standard in addition to what we have today. So we can the more voices we have in the conversation, of course, the better decision we can do in terms of interoperability. All right. Any more thoughts on this? No. Okay. Thanks a lot for the input. So I'll keep you posted on progress for that. So there was an approval on the proposal already. I think there is some more detailed design that I need to do. But yeah, I'll keep you posted on progress there. The only other two things I had in the agenda, one was to continue the V04 planning. I think we did probably the bulk of the things that we want to have in 04 with UML together, but there's still a relatively large number of issues to be reviewed, so we could continue that work. And the other thing, if we have time, or if you prefer to just look at that first, a colleague from IBM created a use case about parent-child pipelines for CDEvents. So I wanted at least to call it out. So if people wants to have a look, maybe we can discuss it next time. And I'm starting commenting on it, making some diagrams. I think that the use case is to help the kind of orchestration between parent and child pipelines for events using CDEvents. But yeah, some of the comments there seems to indicate a more like imperative event pattern again. So I want to try and describe how we can do this kind of use case through declarative events instead.
Just a question that from my understanding, is it when you say parent-child, is it like upstream, downstream, error integration on, so to say, higher levels of integrations from a component, or is it actually sub pipelines from within one pipeline execution?
Yeah, my feeling is more towards the second,
Okay.
but I'm not 100% sure, so I'm still going through. It's quite yeah. So I think there is a thorough discussion about this, but my feeling is more about like child pipeline orchestration, like to break down a large pipeline into pieces connected through events, as opposed to necessarily having like upstream to downstream. But I would think hopefully we could cover both scenarios if this is done correctly through CDEvents.
I guess I was triggered on the dependency management term there, which is then the other one I mentioned. And that's related to an issue I wrote some time ago, a year ago almost. Issue number 39.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's the right one, but
yeah, we can start calling that out. Is this the, well, it's POC
it's
dependency for event.
But it's, yeah, I'm not sure if it really requires new event types, but and I might be wrong out understanding the use case there from the other one. Maybe.
I don't think it necessarily required new event types. I think the intention was more to refine the existing data model so that we standardize more of the pipeline and task run events so that we make it easier to implement these use cases in a good way.
Yep.
Find that. I'm sure that's a good discussion.
Good stuff. Yeah.
Is this okay? Comments?
Yeah. But then if it is really parent-child relationships within a pipeline execution, then I guess we talk about hierarchical or like pipeline run events connected to other pipeline run events. So it would be a hierarchical setting of pipeline events and pipeline step events rather, or step events. I'm not sure if we have an issue for that as well somewhere. Can't recall now. Maybe. Because today we cannot have more than like 2 levels, one pipeline level and then a step level. Maybe we don't.
Yeah, so we have a concept of pipeline and task run, but I guess you could encapsulate them within each other. But I think the point that I started making and on that issue is that since the what we do in CDEvents is more declarative events saying, okay, this happened, and not requesting something else to happen. So you don't really know upstream who is going to react downstream. So typically the decision on whether to react and what to do as a reaction is it happens on the consuming side of the events.
Yeah.
So from the parent pipeline execution point of view, they won't really know about the downstream execution. So they cannot really wait for downstream pipelines execution to complete or the upstream pipeline to complete. So it wouldn't really be encapsulated. It would be more like collated to each other. So one triggering an arbitrary number of other pipelines potentially. And I think then we could, I was planning on creating some diagrams showing how then the idea of like collecting all the events in one place and defining policies could be used then to trigger the next step in the workflow. So if you have a certain number of, I don't know, let's say you're building an artifact and you have a certain number of security checks that you want to run against that artifact. So you could collect all these events and then you could have a policy to say, okay, well, when all these required checks are executed, then you can trigger the next step of the next pipeline, which is a deployment pipeline, for instance. We could be even managed by a different tool that from the tool that executed the build pipeline. And then if you had another check and you want that check to be required, then you would need to alter the policy, but you wouldn't need to alter the source pipeline, if it makes sense.
Yeah.
Which is one of the issues that I know they're struggling with on IBM side, that they have this very huge pipelines with compliances and so forth, and every time there are things that needs to be changed, so everything needs to go back into the big pipeline, and that needs to be modified, and then all the teams that use that large template pipeline need to go through the update of that pipeline, and so there are a lot of updates going through. Well, if you're breaking this down in pipelines connected through events, you can just add one branch or update one branch, add new things, and you don't need to change everything else because of that. So yeah. I think that's where this is coming from.
Okay. I was more thinking, I'm not sure if that's the same thing, but if you would consider when you start implementing your CI flow, we say, you might have a quite simple setup with just a few steps in it, and then maybe you have a test step that is quite rudimentary, but just a very small thing. But then as time goes by, you might increase that test step, that test activity, and eventually you might introduce new test tools and such, and maybe that test step itself would constitute its own pipeline full pipeline run in an external tool, maybe that you just then want to incorporate within the top pipeline, so to say. So then it would be like a pipeline of pipelines on that. I don't think we have any way to reference between then the higher level pipeline to the lower, or vice versa rather. Today.
Yeah, I think that there are two difficulties with doing that with CDEvents today. One is how can you trigger the child pipeline from the source pipeline through CDEvents? Because then, is it a declarative event, or is it you want to have an event that says start this pipeline? We don't have those today, so you would need to say something like the artifact is packaged, and then there is a test system that receives that event and knows that, okay, yeah, so the artifact is ready now, so I will trigger the tests. And the other thing then is from parent pipeline point of view, what does the completion of the pipeline means and success of the pipeline? So if you want to incorporate the result of the testing pipeline inside the original pipeline, you need, as you say, some way to go back and some way for the parent pipeline to know which are the children, who are the children, and have like
for sure. But I mean, if the pipeline is orchestrated and not really event triggered, for example, you have a test step in your pipeline executing certain test activity for you, and then you maybe replace, if that's a bash script or something, just running some tests. But then if you replace that with a full-fledged test system which has its own pipeline in it, but you call it directly, it's not event triggered, but you call it from the parent pipeline. So you more or less replace your tests, your home hard-coded test script with a call to some external test orchestrator, which has its own pipeline defined for it, maybe. And then when that test orchestrator has finished its testing task, it will just, of course, return control to the caller, which would then continue the pipeline on the higher level. And you would like to have some way to refer the events sent from that test orchestrator onto the top level pipeline orchestrator, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, okay, I got it now. So a test step is I think this is maybe a use case that's worth calling out. Again, it seems possibly related also to that issue that 142. And I think it's again relevant for the connecting events. So there should be something in the spec that says, well, if you're triggered with a certain context, you should include that context in the event. And so that allows you to link things back, right? The problem here is that this call would not happen through events. It would happen from an API. So it's harder to express that from a CDEvents point of view, I guess. But yeah, but still worth calling out this use case. I don't know if you want to add a comment on the issue 142 with these as well, say if this is relevant for that use case or not.
I can do that.
Okay. Shall we try and finish the planning in the remaining time?
Sure.
Would that be a good use of our time? Yeah.
Unless Neil has something else on his mind to bring up.
No, good for me.
That's not too bad. We have about two pages of events. Sorry, of issues. Shall we start from the? Well, it doesn't matter really. Okay, I guess the first one is the one that I just created, events for the artifact repositories. I think based on the discussion, this is something that we want to have in the roadmap. So I'll add the roadmap there. I could tentatively put 04. That might help with the Harbor implementation, but I'm not sure there will be actually enough time to do that, especially if we want to involve like JFrog and other parties in the discussion.
Yeah, I guess we could get started with just artifact published event for now, just to make sure that the infrastructure is there and the event can be sent, and then of course it can be expanded later on. Unless Harbor thinks that it's not worth much to have that event without having some more events.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I mean, at least in the proposal I made is to start with that event, and then to continue from there. There might be additions that we can do even to the artifact pushed event to match what they do today or to give more information. So that's maybe also part of the discussion, or maybe I could create a separate issue for those. Yeah.
But it could be that Harbor would like us to add some parameters to the published event, for example. To make sense.
Yeah.
So that would be in scope, I think, for 0.4, if so, at least.
Okay, maybe I'll. Okay, so I created the new issues. So linking here. Add this to the roadmap. And then I'll add this one to the milestone then. Okay. Then next. Okay, so this is the parent pipeline triggering multiple child pipeline. I think at least some part of it for sure is something that it's part of the roadmap. Does it make sense? I would not attach any specific milestone for now. Okay. Next, we have the skip outcome.
Yeah,
So,
sure. Is it really started if it's skipped? So should it even have a test case run started sent for a skip test case?
well, it not necessarily started. That's, I guess, part of the discussion. So we could it depends. So it depends on the test system that you use, and I mean there are different semantics. So in some cases, you can have, like in Python, you can have a discovery step that discovers the test, and you can have skip happening at discovery level. You can have skip declared in the beginning of a test. So actually the test is discovered. Then when he executes, based on the context that is available at execution time, it decides that it won't run because it is running on, I don't know, the wrong operating system, architecture, whatever reason. And yeah, so we can describe, I think, as part of this, maybe it's worth refining what is the expectation in these cases, and whether the skip should be, it could be like a dedicated predicate, or it could be so that if an event is not started at all, you could send, say, test was skipped completely, or we could say started and then finish with skip reason, or we could have started and skipped and not ever finished. I guess it depends a little bit. If you, how we think it's easier for consumer than to parse this information. But well, personally, I think that there is value in reporting the skip test. But one use case is I added here is that in the past we had a problem in the CI system where certain PR would suddenly make a very large number of tests skipped. And then the test job would run successfully. And so then the reviewer would not realize that certain tests were now skipped, not the author. So the PR is merged and we certainly lose a certain amount of coverage. And you can capture that, of course, with coverage report, which then we improved upon. But also if we add like historical information about execution of tests, you could see that a certain test is executed and then is skipped. And that is different from is executed and then is not there anymore, because it's not there anymore could be that the test is actually been removed. While skip means the test is actually still there but not executed. But yeah, so I think that there could be value in having it. I would exclude it. But what I suggested then for Dan is, because they seem to have use case for this, and maybe make a proposal, and then we can continue the discussion on the proposal. Makes sense.
So let's add it to the roadmap, I think.
I guess in one potential output is that we decide not to do this at all, but at least we do discussion about it. We complete the discussion. But okay, we have create demo system to experiment with CDEvents. Oh, it was an update from
Yes,
Adam. I didn't see this.
no, maybe.
Okay, should we add this to the roadmap and review offline? That, or you would like to?
Yeah, maybe not. Yeah, bye-bye. Yeah.
Oh, I can open here. Can have a look at now as well.
What is killer coda?
Yeah, it seems like something like katacoda, I imagine. So, okay, I don't believe I have an account for this.
Should we request him to join a CDEvents meeting and show this
Yeah.
somehow? Or
It's a good idea.
That's good to me. Yeah.
him or her? I don't know who it is. Adam, right? Adam Gardner, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think. I think he mentioned that it's difficult because he's in Australia, I believe. It's difficult for him to join the meetings.
All right. But Brad is here. Maybe Brad can show it if he's in up to date with it. I'm not sure. Are they in the same team somehow, or you know? I don't know.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Apologies, gents. I have to drop for another meeting, but this was definitely very helpful for me and very informative. So thank you.
Thank you
Thank you for joining, Neil.
Thanks, guys. Talk to you soon.
Talk to you.
Talk to you soon. Bye. Yeah, let's try and review these offline then. All right. Well, I think we are at time as well, so
Yeah.
should probably stop here as well.
Yeah.
We didn't get too far in the list.
That's all right. Anyway, we get somewhere.
Do you want to continue do this during the meeting times? I think it makes sense to discuss it together, right?
I think it does. So that's
Yeah.
the time needed. I guess we can probably have some time on that this afternoon as well on the CDEvents meeting if nothing else comes up. I haven't prepared, unfortunately, not anything yet. So
Okay.
And I'm see. Currently, I'm suffering from a bit of a headache, so I'm not sure if I can join. We'll see. I hope I can.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
Could be so.
Hope. Okay. Well, let me know if you feel better. We can have the meeting, and I can also ask folks if they're interested in joining, participating today. If no one is and you're not feeling well, I might cancel the meeting then.
I should reach out to Steve Reira as well for booking another time slot on these BSM specific discussions. But I haven't so far. Last week I was more or less off on other workshops and Digital Summit all week, so I haven't really been able to. But I hope I can do it soon.
All right. Thanks, Emil.
Okay. So
All right.
hopefully talk to you later today.
Yeah.
Take care.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.